Welcome to Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery, a conversation held at the intersection of substance abuse, mental health, and everyday living. Your hosts, Marc and Justin Wolf, bring both professional expertise and personal understanding to the table. So welcome to the conversation. Let's dive in.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. My name is Justin Wolf. As always, joined by my co-host, Marc Regala. Marc, how you doing today, big guy?
I am doing all right. How about you?
I could be doing better. My voice sounds like I've been smoking packs and Newports all day, but, the joys of coaching small children's basketball, having to tell them where to be on the court.
Yeah, you're going to strengthen those vocal cords, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Oh, it's just the pain for glory, right? So,
do you make them run laps if they don't win the game?
Oh, nonstop. I mean, obviously, there's more energy that they have left over that didn't get used on the court. So let's kind of make sure we empty the tank.
Sounds about right. I would expect nothing less from you, Justin.
Yeah. Feel bad about losing? Great, let's run more now. It's like, I don't know why we didn't win a game all season. I don't know either. Strange.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, but yeah, no, in all seriousness, we're coming off of Thanksgiving. Everybody gained a few pounds over the holidays, right over Thanksgiving. We're at the ending of November, in between the holidays now. Calendar's flipping over to December 1st. Colder weather is setting in, and we're right smack dab right now into the holidays, where I know the emotions are sometimes getting the best of people, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Absolutely. No, I think it's spot on, because, I think the holiday season brings with it its own flurry of emotions, its thoughts, its associations, the rituals that come with it. And what makes this time even more challenging is when we've lost individuals and relationships along the way that have been part of this time of the season for us. And so that's really where today kind of diving in to talk about how do we manage and what does loss look like during this time of the year. And when we talk about loss, this is something that can take many different forms. We can talk about losing a loved one, right? The death of a loved one. We can talk about divorce, estrangement, or just really people losing their own physical health. And so all of these things can kind of come together and really play a role, especially as the weather is starting to get, like you said, a little bit colder outside. It gets a little bit darker earlier. And then you have the weight of these losses that are kind of like weighing on one's shoulders that can kind of feel overwhelming, because there can be so much going on this time of year in terms of just like expectations, rituals, get-togethers, all these things that are expected for one to be showing up at.
Yeah. And
when you're carrying all of that with you and expected to kind of put on the face that, hey, let's have that holiday cheer here. Let's be upbeat. Let's be positive. Let's be engaging when we're carrying the weight of this loss or these losses with us each and everywhere we go. That can be a heavy weight to carry. And so I'm sure when we're talking about this, we talk about like family traditions, right? Like, and I'm sure you hear about this too, like the loss of, just what just was our ritual. What was it that we did every year? And I was running a support group last night, Marc, and I know I was telling you a little bit about this before we jumped on here, where we were talking about, coping with the holidays and the stress that comes with it. And the conversation took a turn real quick and stayed there the whole time, talking about just really having lost family members over the past year to 2 years and how that has influenced and shaped just what traditions were to what they are now. And having the thoughts and the ideas and these emotions and these anniversaries that kind of show up.
Yeah.
That add even more additional emotional stress and strain and make this time of year even more challenging. Because think about it, like, it can be hard when you're kind of carrying all that with you, and then you see other people at the same time getting together with family they're still living their lives. They're still having these things that maybe were once in place on our end that are no longer there. We're seeing that happen elsewhere. And that can be a very difficult experience to have. And also for our own reactions that come up when we see other people celebrate, or that when we smell something that might have been a part of our tradition, right? Because like our olfactory senses can kind of get triggered and kind of bring things back. It's the same thing that happens when you hear a song or smell something, see something. All of these things can play a role that can just make the holiday season that much more challenging to navigate. And so I'm just kind of curious, Mark, what's kind of going on your end when you're kind of thinking about, dealing with the losses? And I know for you, man, this is something that you've personally had to kind of adjust to.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, obviously I went through a divorce after 25 years of marriage, and I got the strained relationship with the children. They're all adults. And, I do have grandchildren that I have not met. I'm not going to lie. Early on, she filed for divorce in November of 2018. It was like a week before Thanksgiving that particular year. There were not good decisions that were made.
Mm-hmm.
2018, 2019, not very good decisions made. A lot of drinking, a lot of pill usage, depression, anxiety, all that stuff. 2020, year I got sober, going through that first holiday season, and we talked about that before, specifically going into that first Thanksgiving. A lot of anxious feelings, trying to get through that Thanksgiving sober, a gym visit late at night, an AA meeting very early in the morning that particular Thanksgiving. But that really worked out good because it was a community of support. There was a lot of people that were going through some similar feelings that particular morning. And it was good to have that support, talk through that, and talk to individuals that are kind of feeling the same feelings that you're feeling. 2019 and beyond, 2021 and beyond, excuse me about that. After that initial year of getting sober and going through the holidays the first time sober, they've gotten easier, but there's still feelings there. You just know your patterns, and it's going to be a tougher time of the year. And we've always talked about being proactive as opposed to reactive. So like with me particularly, I do kind of ratchet things up a little bit, way before even Thanksgiving, like usually right around Halloween time or November 1st. Yeah, I do get a little more cognizant, with the diet. I get a little more cognizant with the working out, but I also go to more meetings individually for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, I help with the support groups, with NAMI. Yes, I help out with the podcast. Yes, I speak at the hospitals, and that helps me too. Okay. But at the same time, I'll do more meetings for myself on an individual basis where I just sit back and listen to other individuals going through challenging times and just kind of just take it all in. The other thing too that I've learned through this whole process really is brain work and mindset. And this is something that I've gotten better at, but obviously I still need to continue to get better. But I just try to shift the negative. Whenever I get a negative thought in my mind, I try to shift it to a positive. So like with the kids, yeah, okay, well, it's 8 Christmases that you haven't seen them, but, you had 20 something Christmases that you're a part of their life, that you gave them a pretty good Christmas with Christmas gifts and family traditions at that particular time. So I try to always shift the negative into a positive.
Mm-hmm.
Or, and I am fortunate both my parents are living, but obviously I've gone through holiday seasons, without my grandparents, on the first, Christmas or Thanksgiving without grandma or grandpa, maybe first couple. The feelings are there, specifically when you smell certain foods.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You start thinking about grandma or whatever. But it's the same thing. I was very fortunate to have them as long as I've had them. And that's kind of where I just try to shift my brain. There's a lot of people out there that never got a chance to meet their grandparents, so I mean, that's just kind of how I work through it, kind of like a mind and body type of approach, as well as, a grounding approach with the meetings and so forth. But again, I do believe it's important to journal and to keep notes, to track, your progress or what's going on in your recovery and learn your patterns. I mean, again, we talked about it before. The holiday seasons, for whatever reason, I get real funny sometimes on birthdays and death anniversaries, like for my grandparents. They're typically tougher days to get through. That's just me. And I know from doing support groups, everybody's different, though.
Right. And I think that's the part where you kind of talk about, like, hey, like, I can kind of see this is coming up. I'm aware that this is coming, and I know what this can kind of bring up for me. And like really being able to kind of recognize that these feelings and these emotions that are kind of being experienced, like, this is normal. These emotions, these are reactions, they all make sense based on history and what's been gone through and the relationships that were in place. And so I think that can be like a really tricky and like, sticky area for a lot of people, in the sense of like, I don't want to feel this way. These emotions are bad. And we start to label like these thoughts and these feelings we have as like good or bad. And naturally, as people, like, we just want the good. That's all people want. Like, it's supposed to be an upbeat time. I want to feel positive. I want to be cheerful. I don't want to think about X, Y, or Z, or like the loss of this, right? Like, and so our mind kind of gets entangled with like, don't think about this. Just push this away. And it brings us even closer into contact with the very things that we don't want, and which a lot of time is that pain, is that hurt. And the idea that sometimes what can come up is like guilt and shame, and the fact of like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I should be over this. Or I should, like, sometimes there's external messages that people receive about, hey, like, that's still bothering you? Like, you should be, it's been years, right? And so sometimes that dialogue can start to kind of like creep in and kind of fester and kind of trigger some really strong emotional reaction. And that kind of like can hijack people's own personal grief process.
Yeah.
Because now it's criticism sets in. The ideas and thoughts are emerging, like, am I doing this wrong? Should I be doing more? Versus, hey, there is no timeline for this. Like, everybody goes through their own pattern in order to get past, right? And some of us like might say, I'm never going to get past this. And I can still move forward in my life, right? I can still honor them. I can still continue to like feel that they are with me and bring them with me as I kind of move forward in my life. And I think that's an important thing to kind of like keep in focus, is saying, how do I, as I'm moving forward in my life and I'm honoring those that I've lost because they matter to me? Because that's like the thing that really is important here to kind of acknowledge, is like, that hurt and that pain is valid, it's real, and it sends a loud message. It says like, hey, this person or these individuals really matter to me. Because that's like the flip side of the same coin of just like, this relationship is important. I really care about them. Well, and when that relationship is no longer physically present, it can be replaced with hurt and pain, which is important for us to kind of tune in and attend to in those moments. So knowing, hey, it's okay not to be so festive around this time of the year. You don't have to be the life of the party while also fighting this inner battle that other people aren't aware of. And so how do we honor that individual? How do we create new rituals that really give us the space and the time to really pay our respects and to honor that relationship?
I think, well, first of all, in regards to like your thoughts, because everybody is different. And remember, a thought is a thought. It's your reaction to the thoughts that's the key. You're going to feel emotions, but what you want to do is you want to make the right decisions and not try to run away from those emotions and try to numb out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where people get, triggered, and that's where potential relapse can occur. But as far as like the feeling of sadness or loneliness or anxiousness because of a strained relationship or because of a deceased relative. I just think it's really important to really focus on that brain work as best as you possibly can and just try to shift the narrative in your brain. And also look at, specifically like with deceased relatives, what type of human being that you are today and all the progress that you made, and remind yourself that they would be proud of the person that you are today. Living with a mental health diagnosis and having that mental health diagnosis in check and in recovery, or if you got the addictive component, the fact that you're sober and living a life of recovery as well. And that's just my personal experiences there, because when I was going through those bad times in 2018, 2019, because those were bad holiday seasons, not only was I dealing with the loss of my wife, going through the divorce and the loss of the relationship with my kids, but I had this like tremendous shame and guilt that I failed my grandparents,
Mm.
That they're embarrassed of the individual that I am. That's just, and maybe it's because, I'm thinking about my one grandfather. I mean, I remember growing up as a kid, don't do drugs, don't drink, do this, do that. And I feel like everything that he warned me about and told me to do, I ended up falling into that trap. And when you get out of it and you start paying it forward and you get into sobriety, it felt like even though they're not there, I'm honoring them in a way that makes them proud, and that actually helped me. Even though I might be feeling emotionally during the holidays, knowing that I'm doing them proud, if that makes sense. I don't know if that does or not, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I think you're really speaking on like the importance of really honoring the ones that you've lost and really
Yeah.
kind of keeping their memory alive, right? And
And then
sometimes
as far
it's
as like rituals or establishing
yeah,
new rituals, I there have been new rituals established. But again, it's just like we've talked about before, whether it's like my daily rituals on a daily basis, in recovery versus during the addictive state, dealing with the addictions. You start, you make progress, they just kind of morph, they just happen. It's not like me personally, I didn't set out to replace this with this and this with this with that. It just kind of happened by doing the right thing and keeping your mental health in check and trying to focus on positivity and bringing people in your life that has similar goals, that's gonna cater to your future lifestyle, not your past lifestyle. In a roundabout way, like during the holiday season, there's been some new rituals that have been established, but I mean, they kind of happen by just keeping everything in check and going and trying to have a good day and being there for my nephews or my parents or whoever it might be that's a part of my life, and just trying to make the best of the season, knowing that you still feel some stuff on the inside, and some new traditions have started as a result of that, as opposed to just sitting on the friggin' couch eating like a pig and watching friggin' television all day in a depressed state, or drinking or popping pills, in an addictive state, dealing with your depression like I did those first two holidays.
right. Makes sense. Like kind of want to numb the pain, get away, escape. Like this is unpleasant. This is uncomfortable.
Very natural.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very natural to want to do that. I think that's the reason why, just in general, there's whether somebody has a diagnosed problem or has a perceived problem or not, why there's an uptick in alcohol consumption during the holiday season. That's just how I feel. I mean, emotions get the best of people, especially
Absolutely.
as you get older. You know, your kids are all grown up and they got families of their own and they're doing their own traditions. You're kind of missing them. Okay. Parents pass away, grandparents pass away. Grandma passes away, and we used to get together with all the cousins. And ever since Grandma passed away, all the cousins are doing their own thing. We don't have any extended family getting together.
Yeah.
You're going to go through those change. You're going to go through that metamorphosis in life, and everybody processes that change in a different way. The key is recognizing it and trying to get through that in a healthy way and not run away from the feelings on the inside. I cannot stress that enough.
Right. It's kind of going through it. There's no avoiding it. It's kind of saying, hey, if the more that I try to get away from this, the more that it's going to ever be present. And
Yeah.
so I need to find ways to make sure I'm taking care of myself and really, honoring that memory that I carry with me, whatever it is. Like you talk about traditions, like, hey, creating like a roundtable story night, right? Like sharing memories, just reflecting on what it was that they brought into your life that you're grateful for and appreciate. It's like this, there's like this old exercise where it's like, hey, like instead of like writing a goodbye letter, it's like write a letter of like appreciation, a letter of just really acknowledging like what an impact they made and how it really influenced your life and the person
Yeah.
that you became, right? Like it kind of shifts. Like talk about like, being aware of like the thoughts, the ideas, the feelings that emerge. You're just kind of looking at, hey, can I kind of shift this in a way that helps me get a different perspective than maybe the one that is just habitually been there. And when we do that, we open it up for more compassion towards ourselves, more compassion to be extended to other people, and just really, in a sense, giving ourselves that permission to kind of feel what it is that is naturally coming up and that we're going through without trying to alter it, escape it, or change it. We're just allowing it to kind of run its natural course through. And that is like how healing occurs.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say too, Justin, because I've had a number of conversations with some individuals over the last week or so myself. Um, some of them are trying to get into recovery on the alcohol and drug side. Some are in very early stages of alcohol and drug recovery. A couple individuals I'm thinking off the top of my head, unfortunately, they're going through a divorce. Unfortunately, they're going to be by themselves for Thanksgiving and Christmas because their soon to be ex spouse have made other plans and their kids are going with them. And the point that I'm trying to emphasize with them is, go to where there's community.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of AA halls that literally have 24 meetings in 24 hours. So you got the support that's there. I mean, there's a couple local in DuPage County, during Christmas Day that'll have 24 meetings in 24 hours. The other thing is too is, be active, man. I mean, if you don't have anywhere to go, go serve somewhere. I mean, go serve Thanksgiving, at a church or volunteer at a church or a homeless shelter or, whatever it might be. Um, I think it's important to get out, have some type of human connection. It's certainly going to make you feel good that you're giving back to individuals as opposed to sitting in a basement by yourself, having all these feelings, battling, trying to not drink or do other things, And I just think that that's just so important. I mean, it's an idle mind. In my opinion, is a dangerous mind. Being active, trying, like I said, to be with like-minded people, living a life of service, volunteering. There's a lot of places that need some volunteers during the Christmas time and during, Thanksgiving time and so forth, which we just came off of. I just think that's so important.
Absolutely. And I think the important thing is you're kind of talking about this too, is just acknowledging and validating, hey, this takes a lot of courage. This takes a lot of willingness to kind of look at this, to make contact with this. Because, I mean, as much as we love to believe Nike is like life is like the Nike commercial. It's, hey, just do it. It's like, hey, in order to kind of get myself prepared to take that step, there's also, I got to tune inward and kind of see what is it that I need to make sure that I'm attending to so that I can feel prepared to move in that direction, even though it may be the exact opposite of what my mind and my body are telling me I should be doing. But I can look outside of myself and see this helps me connect with others in a way that is going to be helpful and useful during this time. And I
And
think,
if you got strained relationships with individuals, I would say I always talk about do the next right thing. Wish them Merry Christmas. Wish them Happy New Year. Put the feelings aside. Do the right thing. Extend an olive branch. Maybe you'll get a nice response. Maybe you won't get any response. But at least you controlled the controllable, and in your heart, you know you did the right thing.
absolutely. And I think that's the part, right? Hey, tuning in and kind of acknowledging what it is that you are feeling in your heart. What is going to be important for me to do during this time when maybe stress is a little bit higher or the sadness and anxiety is increasing a little bit because of what's going on and the differences of what this year looks like. and giving yourself permission to kind of, take some time to kind of get yourself to the place that you want to be. Because again, it takes courage. It takes that willingness to tune in, to attend to that. Because there's a big part of people that don't ever allow themselves to feel that, don't allow themselves to get through that. And every time they go to touch that, it drives them back to falling into one of those compulsive behaviors.
Yeah.
That's done to self-medicate, to avoid, to escape. And then it just reinforces how painful that very thing is. And so knowing like, hey, we're talking about just like that sense of community and knowing, hey, I'm trying to carry this by myself. And I can realize there's other people that maybe I can trust to support me in this journey. So I don't have to walk this path by myself.
And I'm just thinking about last Christmas, actually. There was 2 phone calls in particular that I remember. One was a gentleman, and he knew to call me, that was like in his like early to mid 60s. But ironically, he was waking up the first time on Christmas morning by himself in an empty house. He'd always been in a relationship or was married for 20-something years, had kids, grandkids around him. For whatever reason, last Christmas, he was waking up by himself. And, he reached out to me on Christmas morning. He was feeling very, very depressed. And we had a really good conversation about life. We had a really good conversation about, Christmas and so forth. And honestly, he helped. I feel like I helped him, but he helped me by calling me just as much as I feel like I helped him, go through those emotions. And then I had another gentleman in particular that knew to reach out to me. He's separated from the mother of his daughter. He got his daughter on Christmas Eve. He didn't have her on Christmas Day, so he was by himself on Christmas Day. And just emotions were getting the best of him later in the afternoon on Christmas Day. And, he knows the situation I'm in. My kid's not talking to me. And, he reached out and, that was a very emotional conversation. But instead of, and both of them have struggled with alcohol and substances in the past, instead of taking the easy route and not making the call and drinking or using their drug of choice, they reached out. And as a result, again, it helped me, it helped them. They stayed sober for Christmas, and they're still sober to this day, almost a year later.
Well, that's a great story. And I think that's a great way to kind of like wrap this up, Marc.
Yeah.
I appreciate just kind of like the story and the personal reflections you've been able to kind of share, as we've had this discussion. Because I think, this is a difficult and challenging time it can be, especially when the holidays and the association made. So I think you were able to kind of really, shine some light on some things and just really recognizing that, hey, like even though this darkness may be that we're experiencing in this moment, like this too can pass and it doesn't have to overcome us. So again, we also appreciate everybody tuning in today to kind of listen, and because we know like the courage it takes to kind of acknowledge this, that, hey, this is being carried with, and this is part of the journey. And so attending to this, especially when there is that hurt and that pain and that grief that is present. So Thank you everybody for listening. And then we will catch everybody on the next episode. These air on the 1st and the 15th. So if there's anything you want to hear us talk about, any topics you'd like to see us discuss, feel free to email us, and we'll be more than happy to incorporate that into our next program. So thank you, everybody. Until next time.
Peace.
Thanks for joining us today on Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery. If you're on the journey to find guidance and insights, subscribe now wherever you find your podcasts. Healing Minds, Stories of Resiliency and Recovery is an educational resource, not a substitute for medical or therapeutic advice. The opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are not necessarily those of NAMI DuPage. Go to namidupage.org/podcast for links to past episodes, show notes, and to submit a question or topic ideas for a future episode. Until next time, be well.